Hello, everyone. My name is Ruby Stricker. I'm coming to you live from the Intrepid Museum. I am a museum educator here at the Intrepid. Joining me later will be my colleague Peter Taraka, a manager of aircraft restoration here at the museum. I'm joining you from the Intrepid, which is an aircraft carrier. Um, I am so happy to have so many people joining me today. Friends from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, friends from Maine, Mrs. Jessica's class from South Carolina, Happy Valley Elementary School in California, Coral Academy of Science in Las Vegas, Mountain Elementary in New Mexico, Jennifer's class from Eastern Washington, Heather's class from Gemma in New York. We have so many people from all over the country and I'm so glad to welcome you all here today with me. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about aircraft maintenance and restoration. And we'll be talking about the different aircraft we have on board at the Intrepid and talking to my colleague Peter Taraka about the work that they do to make sure these aircraft look in their best shape and are maintained in their best shape. All right. While we discuss are the different things today, I encourage you to put questions in the chat or the comment section of whatever platform you're on. At the end of our time today, we will have time for a quick Q&A, a few questions with Peter. So please continue to put questions or comments in the chat, as well as on our Flip page at flip.com/intrepid. Throw your questions in our Ask the Expert page there, and we'll be able to answer your questions. Any questions that don't get answered in the Q&A, we'll answer those after the program is over. So I'm going to head to my slides here. Like I mentioned, we'll be talking about aircraft maintenance and restoration today. If you have access to the chat or the comment section, throw in the chat what the difference is between preservation and restoration. If you were here with us last week, you saw my colleague Danielle discuss the collections on board and how they preserve collections on board. What do you think the difference is between this word preservation that Danielle discussed and this word restoration that Peter will later discuss? Now, a quick introduction to the Intrepid. Intrepid is an aircraft carrier. It was built between 1941 and 1943, meaning that its earliest period of service was during World War II. You're looking here at Google Arts and Culture, which is a platform that allows you to look inside our museum, inside our ship, our submarine, and on our pier and on our flight deck. Now, I wanted to show you here the oldest aircraft we have in our collection. This is called the Avenger. This is a World War II aircraft. It flew at about 250 miles per hour. This space we see here is our hangar deck. While the ship was active, this held many airplanes for maintenance and for storage, while other aircraft were up on the flight deck where they could land and take off. Now, the aircraft up here took off down at this end and landed down at this end where our Space Shuttle Pavilion now is. We have over 24 aircraft here at the Intrepid, aircraft from all throughout Intrepid's period of service. Some aircraft that actually flew off the ship, some aircraft that were in service during the ship's period of service, and some aircraft from other nations as well. These aircraft here are North Vietnamese aircraft that were used during the Vietnam War. The plane here with the shark mouth on it is the fastest airplane that actually flew off Intrepid. It is called the Crusader. It flew at about 1,300 miles per hour. We also have aircraft that are not airplanes. We have helicopters in our collection. Um, and all of these aircraft are maintained and preserved by my colleague, Peter Taraka, and his team. Now, you see here this empty piece of our flight deck. Today, this is filled by our aircraft restoration hangar. And I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan and Peter for Peter to discuss what he does in our aircraft restoration hangar.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Taraka, manager of aircraft restoration here at the Intrepid Museum. And Right now, we are in the aircraft restoration hangar. This is where uh, pretty much all the airplanes up here on the flight deck, or those that will fit in here, uh, spend some time, or have spent time, or will spend time getting essentially a cosmetic makeover. Try to make them look great so you guys can enjoy them. Uh, God, the difference between restoration and conservation, that's a huge one. Most of what I do up here is falls under the term restoration because what I'm doing, all the aircraft out here on the flight deck, they're essentially decayed. Uh, the best they look is when they leave the hangar after a makeover, and then we pray for 7 to 10 years of staying in good shape. And so we bring one in here when something starts looking pretty rough out there. We bring it in here and we remove the old coatings and we do whatever restoration work might be required, and that's sort of contingent on the amount of corrosion that has gone on uh, between UV and rainstorms, snow, and there's a tremendous amount of salt in the air because we're so close to the ocean, and salt is like the worst thing for aluminum. Just chews it up. So we'll bring it in here, and whatever repairs are necessary after we remove the old coatings and look at everything and take it apart as much as we're capable of taking it apart, and finish removing birds' nests, beehives, and all that other good organic stuff that accumulates while it's out there. We will assess whatever repairs need to be made. And my little workshop here, it's not really a little workshop. Uh, there I have some capabilities. I can do some sheet aluminum work and things like that, but if it's something that's beyond what I'm capable of doing, uh, I'll reach out to surprisingly eBay has is a wonderful source of goodies, uh, or military surplus stuff, and then we, after it's cleaned and preservative coatings are applied, we'll repaint it and bring it back out there. One of the things we like to do is make sure that the finishes that we put on it, all of the markings, are more historically accurate, and even better if that airplane had something to do with Intrepid and Intrepid's uh, wartime service, then we can try to do our best to duplicate those markings. And then the airplane becomes a tool for tour guides to then flush out a story about how the airplane and the ship have stories that intermingle. Let's see what else. Right now, I'm going to walk around, talk about the F-16. Yeah. All right. Uh, so this airplane, this is one of the newest airplanes that we've acquired, and that's a great thing because when we brought it in for the makeover that I spoke of earlier, it's a fairly straightforward thing because being an airplane that is that new, it doesn't have any serious corrosion issues going on. Uh, and another note I wanted to mention is that most of the jet-powered airplanes that we have on deck, the engines have been removed. And we actually prefer it that way for a couple of reasons. One, it's much easier to move around. It's usually about 7,000 pounds lighter. Uh, and two, if the engine starts to corrode and that corrosion spreads to the inside of the airplane, it's substantially more difficult for us to get to. But if the engine has been removed, we can usually select one of the more diminutive volunteers and send them in there with the corrosion prevention goodies that we use. Uh, Now this, your timing is tomorrow. This wouldn't be in here. Tonight we are moving this out of the hangar to be power washed in preparation for painting. It's been in here for a couple of months, and a substantial layer of dust has accumulated on it. And before we apply the coatings, we want it to be as clean as possible. And you see I've got the tow bar all hooked up and it's ready to go, and we'll bring it up, and then it will, after washing, it will come back in here for us to start laying out the markings and and painting it, and then it will go back out on display, and then we'll have the fun moment of walking around the flight deck and determining which airplane is in the worst condition. And we'll bring that one in and start the process all over again. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Peter. We're going to give our classes in the comments a few minutes to give their questions in the comments and in the chat section. Before we head over and give Peter questions, I'm just going to head back here to our slides. I want to show a few pictures of one of the aircraft restoration team's most recent projects, which was the Corsair project. The aircraft restoration team received pieces of a Corsair airplane, a World War II aircraft. You can see photos of it in the top right during World War II. They received these pieces of the Corsair from the Japanese government, who had recovered it in the Pacific. As you can see, it's not a full airplane, but they used those pieces to restore and eventually tell a story about these pieces of the Corsair. So I think that we can head back to Peter to talk about this project a bit.
Yeah. These are speaking of the F-16, these are a couple of dummy missiles that the F-16 was equipped with, and we have removed them from the airplane so we can give them the attention they desire. They're dummies. There's nothing. Don't worry. There's nothing explosive here. I know because I dropped them. No. And it's great that we have them removed, because bringing the F-16 in here, the F-16 was all the way at the bow of the ship, which is quite a distance to pull the airplane when you're weaving it between other airplanes trying to get in here. And it got right down to 2 inches. We were squeezing around other planes to bring it in. And then we realized, hey, we'll just take the missiles off, and then we get the airplane instantly becomes a couple of feet narrower and much easier to deal with. So it's a constant learning experience. That's what that's all I. That's.
All right, thank you, Peter. All right, before we head to our comment section, I just want to point out that on our flip page at flip.com/intrepid, we have an art activity for everyone. If you head over to flip.com/intrepid, you can see visual instructions on folding your own paper airplane and decorating that. So head over to flip.com/intrepid to see visual instructions on folding your own paper airplane, and you can post your results as well as any questions you have. Now, before we take some questions and give them to Peter, we're going to take a quick selfie together. So take a moment, get together, and we will take a selfie, and then we will give Peter a few questions. All right, thank you. Now we have a few questions here that we've gotten from different classes. First one, Miss Cope's class is wondering which plane in our collection is the fastest?
Oh, that's too easy a question. The uh, the A-12, the Lockheed A-12 that we have, uh, trumps everything here at over 3 times the speed of sound, uh, which 2,100 miles an hour. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's about 22, 2,500 miles per hour. The next question from Miss Cope's class is how do you move the planes into and out of the hangar?
Oh, that's a that's a bone of contention. We used to have years ago. We had a little tractor that was made to do this, and it was determined that it was too expensive to maintain that. So it disappeared one day with plans to get another one, and those plans have yet to come to fruition. So, to move the airplanes around, I usually contact other departments of the ship and amass a small army of muscular individuals, and we do it the old school way. We push them around.
They push them around.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Our next question is how many total aircraft do we have on board?
24. I'm going to say 24.
24. We were trying to come up with it earlier. We thought
Yeah.
maybe 26, I think.
But
24.
you count the space shuttle, which is an airplane. Okay. It's a spacecraft too, but it re enters the atmosphere and flies around just like a glider.
Thank you. All right. Our next question is how do you decide how the aircraft will be decorated while it's being restored?
Uh, we usually pour over photographs in the archive. If we can't find anything on board the ship, because we have several airplanes that are from other countries, uh, we'll usually refer to uh, magazines. There are so many enthusiasts about these airplanes. I get a lot of information about markings, uh, researching what is offered to modelers. That you would not believe how crazy these modelers get about having the correct details on their model airplanes that they're building. And uh, once again, I'm going to mention eBay. I'm not getting any money from eBay, but I want to mention that it's another wonderful resource, looking up markings for model airplanes, and it's just super detailed stuff. And of course, I don't use that as the one and only reference. If I see something I like, I'll then cross reference it with any historical photographs I've located in magazines and other journals.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Our next question is do you ever get rid of airplanes from your collection?
Yes, we do. For instance, to make room for the shuttle, when it was decided that we would be awarded a space shuttle, uh, I'm not sure if you know, but they're pretty big. So we had to get rid of 3 airplanes uh, to make room for that. And it just so happened, and museums around the world do this, just so happened there's a museum in Schenectady, New York, the Empire Aerosciences Museum, that wanted the 3 airplanes we were considering uh, getting rid of. So the deal was made, and they're right near the Hudson River. They just sent a great big barge down, parked next to the ship, and a crane picked those 3 airplanes up and put it on the barge. And it was a very tearful moment because uh, both myself and my boss, much more my boss, had put an awful lot of work into restoring these three airplanes. So, yeah, it was a sad moment, but was way overshadowed by the fact that we were getting a shuttle.
Yeah, I watched the Concorde be taken off the pier, and it was a crazy occasion,
Yes.
lifted
Yeah.
up by a crane. All right, our next question is how do you protect the aircraft from the weather when they're out on the pier?
Well, we do our best to apply that. When we apply the paints, we put on a very thick layer because we know it's going to do nothing but erode, uh, and we do our best to seal it from the elements. For instance, you see a small opening here. Uh, we will probably fashion some kind of styrofoam block or something to go in there and do our best to seal it on the top side, but take care to leave openings on the bottom. Not necessarily this one because a bird can get in there. I'll probably do some kind of netting to uh, eliminate the chance of birds building nests in there. But we'll put smaller, we'll leave open smaller openings on the bottom of the airplane so that if water does get in there, which is you can, you can do your best to seal this thing, and it's water's going to get in there. Uh, if it does get in there, it has a way to drain because that's the worst thing you could possibly do is have water building up inside the airplane and corroding. May I ask a question? You guys, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
All right. I heard you mention Maine. I grew up in Maine, and I'm curious where the school in Maine is.
Let me see.
I didn't mean to throw you a curveball there. Uh,
I think the school in Maine only told us Maine. We can
oh,
see if
okay.
we can get it in the chat. We can see if we
Okay.
can get it in the chat.
All right.
Peter's wondering where the school in Maine is from. We'll see if we can get them in the chat. While we wait for them, we have one more question,
Lay it
and
on.
that is how long on average does it take to restore one of these aircraft?
That is a question I get often, and I always have the same, probably unsatisfying reply, and that is they're all different. Uh, Looking at this airplane, it came in here, and it was just a quick. It'll probably be turned around in 2.5 months. I have other airplanes in here, uh, substantially older. Uh, the one that comes to mind is the Sky Raider, uh, and that was 2.5 years to finish because it required so many. There was a substantial number of corroded parts that needed to be removed, and we fabricate new stuff. And I don't know. The wonderful thing is that I don't receive any pressure from my superiors about when is the job going to be done because they understand that it's I don't know it's a work of love. Yeah, yeah,
All right. Thank you so much, Peter.
yeah, sure.
Um, we may have an answer from Evergreen.
Evergreen.
Unsure. That's what I've got in my chat.
Okay,
Um,
I'll look it
but
up. It doesn't come to mind, but
you look it up. I'm not sure, but we'll
all
try
right.
and find out where our main class is from.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today, for giving your expertise on aircraft restoration and about the F-16 and answering all of our questions. Um, thank you. I want to encourage everyone in the chat and in the comments to continue giving your questions on our flip page, and we'll be answering those questions on our flip page at flip.com/intrepid. Um, we'll say bye to Peter now. So, Peter, we'll say goodbye to you. But before we finish up, I do want to show everyone the aircraft that Peter referenced, the A-12. Um, the A-12, this is the A-12 on our flight deck here. It is the fastest aircraft we have in our collection. As Peter mentioned, it flies at about Mach 3.3, which is 3.3 times the speed of sound, or the speed of my voice reaching your ears. Flies at about 22, 23 miles, 2,300 miles per hour. It's this sleek, long black airplane. It looks very different from all of the other aircraft on our flight deck. But it sits here at the end of the flight deck, and we encourage anyone who comes to the museum to come and see our A-12. Um, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you want to see more of the inside or outside of the museum, make sure to go to our Google Arts and Culture page. That link is down below me. Google Arts and Culture allows you to see the inside, the outside of the ship, as well as the submarine and other spaces that you wouldn't be able to see unless you were here, and also other spaces that aren't as accessible to the public. Um, I also encourage you to, again, to go back to our flip page at flip.com/intrepid to see instructions on folding that paper airplane, as well as to put questions, any questions you have that weren't answered today, um, on that flip page, and we will get to those as soon as possible. Um, I mentioned last week our collections page. If you want to see any of the things we have in our collections or anything that Danielle mentioned last week, that's at intrepid.emuseum.com. Make sure to head over to our collections page and see all of the wonderful things we have in our collection. I want to thank everyone who joined us for 1, 2, or 3 sessions this fall. We are so grateful for everyone for tuning in, and we hope we'll be back with Flip in the future because we've had a wonderful time, and we hope that you've had a good time too. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.